a description of kindness that I just really love that I came across from a minister from British Columbia. I'm going to read this to you. Kindness, I have discovered, is a strength. It is something that takes courage, that involves a deep sense of compassion, a hard-edged love that treats others with respect and graciousness, while coming from a place of deep commitment to other people. A place of feeling deeply secure in our own identity and unthreatened by how others might perceive us. There are many other words we can use to describe what is contained within kindness: compassion, justice, forgiveness, hope, humility, graciousness, perseverance, dedication, love, and so much more. It takes a deep inner strength to be kind, a willingness to risk ridicule and being dismissed, while at the same time being completely committed to the well-being of oneself and of those around us. And what I feel like maybe I'll spend the rest of my life on this, is I think that we in Maine have an opportunity to really set an example for the nation. And dare I say, I sort of hate the fact that the Lewiston shooting has really heightened for us the incredible need for people to take care of each other, you know. And I was teaching we're doing a bunch of adult ed classes on kindness through Active Kindness Maine. And a week after the shooting, we had our Brunswick class, and it turns out that one of the people in the class who showed up had been, her son was childhood friends with, as she called him, Robbie Card. And she knew him as a thoughtful, kind young man. And could see how somehow, you know, and I don't know, maybe this is controversial to say, somehow he was let down by society in being taken care of and ending up in that situation. And another person in the class had a friend who was fighting for her life because they had been one of the people wounded. And so, you know, it's really brought home how important it is to have kindness. I think that Maine is, you know, I was not born here. You could say I'll never be a Mainer. I was married for 17 years to a dyed-in-the-wool, multi-generational Mainer, but, you know, as they say, you know, because the cat has kids in the oven, that don't make them biscuits.
You got here as soon as you could, right?
What's that?
I said you got here as soon as you could.
I got here as soon as I could. Yeah, and you know, Maine, I think, is unique in a lot of ways. We already do so much taking care of each other in Maine. I think we, you know, as people may know, you know, and I think even with the shooting, we were ranked the safest state in the nation by, I think it was the FBI statistics. That came out actually like 4 days before the shooting. We know how to take care of each other in this state. We are the state with, other than Vermont, more small town populations than any other state. We are second in the nation for having the smallest, largest city of the state. Portland with 65,000. Vermont beats us because Burlington has only 40,000. But we are a state of small communities. And we are a state that is very independent. Not only our record of independent politicians who have been elected to office, but how many of you know that we had the highest percentage of people vote for Ross Perot when he ran for president? That shows that we think outside the box and we like people who go another path. So, all right, I'm going to now start moving through more quickly. I guess what I wanted to say is there's a lot of programs around the country that are around kindness campaigns and initiatives. What I have a vision of doing in Maine is, and I don't want to say anything, you know, I want to be kind towards all those other programs, but a lot of them tend to be about only things like putting signs in your yard to say be kind. Or there are some that it's all about, we want to have more acts of kindness than any other state. And then it becomes a counting game. I'm all for those, and I think that in Maine, we have the opportunity to understand what kindness means in a deeper way than any other state. I am a very competitive person, so I want us to be best at kindness, and then set an example. I will actually pass out to you something to also set the stage. This is an exercise we've started doing in our courses and workshops. And it actually came out of working with the HR folks with the exercise that I did. And this shows that kindness, there's, sometimes I say there's as many ways of being kind or receiving kindness as there are people on the planet. We're all unique in how we can be kind. As we've been going through our classes, we've been doing exercises where people brainstorm all the different types of acts of kindness. And then I've come up with all of these categories to try and put them in. And, Scott, you talked about your father and listening. So if you look, you'll see the fifth one down is listening, is a category of kindness. And so, what we're doing in our classes and in these workshops, and we're going to start doing even longer term, even year long, and we're going to be working with like corporate leaders and such, is really doing a deep dive into. So this is something that can be used as a self-assessment to understand what are the ways that, which of these categories is my superpower of kindness. Which are the areas that I might want to improve? And what's not on here, but we did it at one of my last workshops, I haven't figured out how to put it in here, is what are your kryptonites that get in the way of being as kind? What's the kryptonite that keeps you from listening? You may be really good at listening at work, except when, like, whatever it might be, except when that particular person walks in the room, and then I just shut down and I don't want to hear what they have to say, So this is just an example of how we're really working on taking a deep dive. All right, I'm going to have some fun and try and roll through these. This is what I was actually going to show while I read to you the definition of kindness in French. And so this, is capturing those different forms of kindness that are on that handout. Some of the trends and dynamics going on in the country right now that have a bearing on all of this. I don't know if you all can read this. This is church membership amongst U.S. adults has gone from 73% back in 1940, and just in the last few years, precipitous decline down to 47%. That's, are you a member? The statistics also show that even amongst people who are members of faith institutions, actual attendance is declining. So there's a lot more people who, you ask them, are you affiliated? Are you a member of a congregation? They say yes. Are you actually attending? Not really. And our faith institutions used to play such a vital role in not just kindness, but being the glue that holds together our communities. The relationships, the clergy have served as the mediators and conflict resolution people sometimes within their congregations. I was not raised Catholic. Sometimes I'm almost I know this is mixing metaphors. I'm almost a born again Catholic. And one of the things I think that the Catholic faith really provided was confession, the opportunity to share things that that you're ashamed of. So anyway, I can end up spending the whole rest of the time talking about this, and I won't.
See through.
I can come back. I don't know if all of you are familiar with the fact that the US Surgeon General has said loneliness and isolation are some of the biggest challenges. He's on a campaign to work on that. Younger people are really struggling with mental health issues, and you know, they really want to see mental health and kindness at work. And I can tell you, boy, I mean, I hear from people that the workplace environment, I mean, I don't work in a traditional workplace, but I know a lot of people who are really struggling that the workplace environment has gotten more and more difficult. And it's not completely disconnected from the fact that political polarization. You know, I hesitate even to put this slide up. You know, which, I mean, I think wherever you are on the spectrum, when something like the storming of the Capitol happens, clearly we are polarized in a way that is really not good. So these are trends that are happening that you know, and again, I think Maine has a place to set an example. I just love this quote. You will probably forget a lot of what I tell you tonight. And this is where I kind of like, God, I don't like going through slides. I really just, you know, I'd rather spend 2 hours just talking with you and hearing what are you struggling with, who are the kindest people in your lives, how can we help each other? Because I really do believe that mostly, even if we're not aware of it, most of what we remember is how people made us feel. Okay. Yeah. Other inspirations for me, and this is why a lot of the focus that we're doing through Acts of Kindness Maine is working with small groups of people, is a quote from Margaret Mead. Small groups of committed citizens can change. I just realized I don't need to tell you guys that, right?
Just put Rotary.
Yeah, Rotarian can change the world. The only thing is, hopefully not the only thing that ever has, and let's spread the word. The ripple effect. Lots and lots of groups of small people can have a huge ripple effect, which ties in with the tipping point, how little things can make a big difference. When we add all these things together, you know, we can really, I think we can change the world. So, okay, what has AOK Maine done so far? We've been doing adult ed classes. People have been asking me to come in and talk to college and university classroom. We're in the early stages of creating local level community kindness committees. I'll hopefully talk a little bit more about that, and potentially to actually be part of local town government, just like the cemetery committee or the park and rec committee, etc., as a way to make it a sustainable, durable thing over time. Kindness for the holidays workshops. One of the things that has been really exciting for me is having a 30-year history in Maine. I know a lot of people. And so when I launched Acts of Kindness Maine a year ago, I reached out to a bunch of friends and colleagues, one of who runs leadership development at Maine Development Foundation. And she very eagerly said, yes, I'll be on your advisory team. And then a month later, she says, well, would you like a 5-person team, practicum team from Leadership Maine to help you over the next 9 months? Like, yeah. And so we helped, it was an amazing team of 5 folks, the CFO from Bangalore Savings Bank, woman who's the executive director for Foundation for Portland Public Schools. And so it was just a really cool team to work with. First ever Kindness Informed National Conference. I'm part of a national organization called National Coalition for Dialogue and Deliberation. And at their Atlanta conference 2 months ago, I worked with the design team to have all of these kindness activities, like a kindness scavenger hunt. And we gave thank you cards to all 300 participants, blank thank you cards, for them to then give to other presenters or give to the hotel cleaning staff. We did workshops, etc. I want to be able to raise money to hire a person to work full-time on bringing kindness into conferences every year. The way, the ripple effect of that is really just incredible. And then the College and University Human Resources conference that I mentioned, I got asked to keynote at, which is leading to putting together certainly Maine and potentially New England, but most of the higher ed institutions at Maine were at that conference. And so we're talking about like a kindness consortium for Bowdoin, Mecca, USM, St. Joe's, etc. The adult ed courses, we've been working with something like 10 different programs, mostly Southern and Central Mid-Coast Maine. This, one of the cool things about working with the adult ed programs, this is how I'm able to look like I'm doing so much stuff when I'm just getting incredible amounts of help. So they do all the promotion, they do the graphic design, they come up with the photos. All I have to do is write up the description. And so this is from the Merry Meeting Adult Ed program. And what's been really exciting is this was a 3-series class, meeting every 2 weeks. And then we had our last one last week, but it turns out it's not the last one, because everybody said, well, you're not going to stop, are you? And so we're now going to start meeting either every other week or monthly with that class continuing. This was a program with Chaplaincy Institute of Maine. Again, I reached out to them. They designed this flyer, they did the promotion for it. All I have to do is come and show up. And we did that one November 11th. This is a photo of the Portland Adult Ed class. I find anytime that I'm maybe feeling down, all I have to do is look at this photo, and it just lifts my spirits to see all of these people smiling. Okay, our aspirations for 2024 and beyond. Local community kindness committees, I've asterisked those because that's like a real focus that I want to do in 2024. Workplace programs, I've been talking to various people about workplace kindness teams, and there's a lot of interest in launching those. Statewide monthly act of kindness, that's a whole very ambitious idea to have a social media campaign where once a month we have a statewide act of kindness. It could be holding doors open for people. It could be talking to a homeless person. And the idea being that kindness is not just an individual action, it's something that we can be doing all together. Sometimes that's in a group, but sometimes it's just like realizing, oh gosh, look, everybody in Old Orchard Beach today is holding doors open. Like, isn't this fun? Isn't this cool? Compassionate leadership training, we're looking at putting together a conference. And I'm particularly excited about bringing kindness into local and state government, working with the legislature. Christina and I have already been talking about some things through her organization to collaborate on, and an actual kindness policy agenda. How do we, at the local and state level, have kindness in our policies? Which I think creates the opportunity to really bridge difficult political divides when we can talk to each other about how those different views actually on both or all sides of the aisle come from a place of kindness. We have a growing network of allies and partners. I'm going to just breeze right through here because it's almost 7:30. I also just wanted to show that this is something that there are schools that are really working on. Stanford, this has been, I think, at least 10 years, has a Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. And I think we have so much to learn. Even programs like this still are not getting into actual like evidence-based science for not just the benefits of kindness, but how do we actually help all of us be more kind? I mean, science can really help us with that. It's amazing to me that it's like kindness is at the core of every major religion, but we rarely even talk about what it means. We just say, yeah, kindness, love, kindness, but we rarely even take it to the dive, and we've never really studied. I mean, I'm not finding programs out there, research programs of how do we, like, what parts of the brain need to be encouraged to create more kindness. So Stanford is doing it. Emory University down in Atlanta has their Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics. But I didn't know all this kind of stuff was out there. UCLA got a $20 million donation for the Bidari Kindness Institute. This was just like 2 years ago. So there's a growing movement going on out there. And USM has the Bertha Crosby Ball Center for Compassion, which has been around for, I think, 3 or so years. Kindness in the Workplace is a report put out by one of the leading funders of kindness in the country. It is the Born This Way Foundation, which was founded by Lady Gaga, who is actually one of the leaders in funding kindness in the country. Who knew? In the corporate institutional environment, the future of leadership is kindness. This quote from the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. We placed over time so much emphasis on notions of assertiveness and strength that we have assumed it means we can't have those other qualities of kindness and empathy. And I like that she says it's both. It's assertiveness and strength and kindness and empathy. A lot of the work that's being done on diversity, equity, and inclusion to address all of the tensions that we have around racial, ethnic differences, neurodiverse differences. I really like some of the work that's starting to be done. As it says, too often we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of what we should not be doing. But to understand why some actions might actually harm another person, we need compassion. And I'm starting to research programs that go beyond that to really look at, how do we do this kind of work in a way that doesn't make people just feel bad about themselves? Like, oh, I didn't know, like, I feel bad that I'm doing things wrong. These are very touchy subjects, and I think we need to bring kindness into these kinds of conversations and work. Kindness and competency. I'm going to keep moving through. Okay, community kindness committees. The idea is to foster community cohesion, quality of life, and a sense of belonging. This is the little logo icon for Acts of Kindness Maine that we created before the Lewiston shooting, and now there's all of the Maine with the heart at Lewiston. I haven't quite figured out whether we need to do something different or not. And the idea of these kindness committees is support for isolated residents. Really, again, it's a small group of committed citizens bringing together people within a community. I'll jump ahead for a second here. Local residents, businesses, Rotary clubs, faith institutions, libraries, food pantries, town government, community gardens, schools, adult learning programs, with the idea of having committees that can, simply meet once a month and strategize and brainstorm on how to work together to create programs. My vision is to raise enough money that we can have some funding, maybe just a small stipend for somebody in the community. It might be $2,500, $5,000 a year for somebody who can put in some time and they're getting paid for it. Maybe a retired person, retired clergy, retired mediator, retired school teacher, somebody who maybe brings those skills to help lead this kind of effort so that we can be creating more programs in our communities to support isolated residents, youth kindness activities. One idea that's been coming up is a mutual aid roster. where, and it's something we could use technology to have, and simply where people in the community can say, hey, I'm willing to donate 4 hours a month. I'm a lawyer. I'll help somebody who needs some free legal aid. Somebody says, I'm willing to shovel somebody's driveway. And so that when people are in need of whatever it is, there's a roster that they can go to try to get some help. Book clubs, forums, monthly kindness cafes in a local coffee shop, etc. I'm gonna breeze through, these are some slides about the leadership main class. They wrote up a whole report, which is on our website. They did a very simple exercise. They baked cookies. The 5-person team did a bunch of research, and then they said, we want to do something experiential. And they said, we want to bake cookies for everybody in the full 35-person class. And we want to find a card for each one of them and send them, give them a handwritten note about how much we appreciate their particular things that they brought to the leadership main program. And it's very simple, and it ended up having a big impact on all of the people who got the cards and got the cookies. These are some of the results. And I will quickly show you this. So then the team did a survey of all of their classmates in leadership main. Did that experience inspire you to perform an act of kindness? And, here are some of the answers. One person said, I have thought about this act of kindness daily since then, and I've been working into my day, small acts of kindness is giving to others. So again, the ripple effect, cards and cookies. I don't think it's shown on here, but I remember one of the members of the team said that somebody said, oh, I have that card on my desk. I put it on my desk so that every day I can look at it and just remember, like, somebody did an act of kindness for me. I'm going to pass it on, pay it forward. This was the exercise I put together for that HR conference, which led to this worksheet. The difference being the top is different forms of acts of kindness, and along the left are the different functions of human resources. So recruiting, onboarding, retention, training, etc. And the exercise was for them, and they did this in small groups, to look at where are the sweet spots where a particular form of kindness could really make a difference in a particular function of HR. And so for recruiting, this is just an example, being generous could really help with recruiting. We'll give you a good salary. Really listening to them as to what they want and trying to be generous. Showing caring, support, and presence. Again, people nowadays, when they're looking for a job, the work environment is, in some cases, is just as important as the pay. So we did this exercise at their small tables. I had to really decide whether to stop after 15 minutes. They were talking and going at it. So that was really kind of exciting. These were some simple steps that could be done within the work environment that led to me developing this worksheet. This is, again, part of the idea of what I call flood the zone, that our vision for kindness in Maine is to work with all of these existing entities that are out there, colleges and universities, Rotary clubs, built ed programs, etc., and being able to come in and both give talks, do workshops, do exercises to leverage all of this existing, basically social infrastructure that exists out there. And in order to do that, then how do we draw on the resources, that the human resources that we already have in Maine in our communities? And that's, we have, it's 35 Rotary clubs, I think, 41 in the district. I don't know.
And there's a northern district too.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a lot of individuals who potentially, one of you could decide, oh yeah, like I want to be on the local community kindness committee. maybe the Rotary Club has a, maybe you have a formal representative to it as a liaison. Leadership Training has something like 1,000 alumni around the state to potentially play these roles. So that's part of this is why I say, through no credit of my own, I'm an engineer. I look at this as how do we operationalize kindness? And I just think in some ways I'm maybe, there's probably people running kindness programs elsewhere that are probably kinder than I am. But they're not engineers who look at it as a systems type of challenge and exercise. And so I just feel like it's like that's part of what I bring to this. Oh, this is there's a couple of books out there that I think are really kind of good. And then this is my final slide for now. It's not yet. I'd love to come back at another time and talk more and hear some of the people who, with these worksheets, have been hanging them on their refrigerators at home, so that other family members look at it. Some of them have talked about actually sitting down like at dinner and saying, hey, let's do this together. And the idea of this is you can do your own self-assessment and you can do a kindness assessment of other people in your family or your friends. And one of the things that I was very intrigued by is I came up with this, particularly thinking about the holiday. Who do you have that, Thanksgiving's over now, but who do you have that's kind of difficult in your life that you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to deal with Uncle Joe?
My mom. I will tell her.
What would it be like if you did two things? One is look at what is your superpower of kindness, and how could you use that superpower to deal with that situation, that person, and to look at this and say, all right, I might think they're just the worst person ever, but let me see, is there anything on this list of kindness categories that I might say, yeah, they at least sometimes do that, or maybe they're really good at that, like being honest. Sometimes the people who we find most difficult are the ones who are actually really honest. And then you can look at this and say, and so maybe that's a strength of theirs. I always can trust that what they tell me is how they feel. I never have to second guess them. Or maybe they're really good at that with their friends and at work, but they're not that way in the family. And I know that sometimes, maybe myself included, I don't want to know anything kind about that person who it's a lot easier if I just assume they're just difficult. But if I want to get through the holidays in a better way, in a way that I feel better, purely self-serving, you could say, well, let me see if I can find some ways they're kind. And then maybe they actually won't push my button quite so much. So I certainly encourage you, if you want to try that. I'll take a little bit of a risk here and say, how many of you by a show of hands would at least consider trying that? I see Jacob. To try, who's that difficult person? And it doesn't have to be just the holidays, somebody at work, someone somewhere where it's like, let me just try this and see what I find out when I do this exercise. I did it myself with someone who's a family member who's really difficult. Well, at least I think they're really difficult. And it actually did shift my impression of it. So, thank you. And thank you for letting me go 12 minutes over.
That's okay, because we started at least 12.
Yeah, right. We apologize for the technology.
We always struggle with technology.
Do you want to take a minute or two to just any questions or
Sure.
anybody have any?
I'm curious, do you have towns you're working with already for kindness committees or have you even done that?
So
Especially-
my town of Waterboro is where I'm the furthest ahead, and it still is just in the formative, just talking to the different folks. I've talked to the librarian, I've talked to the food pantry. We have a chaplain, who's a graduate of Chaplaincy Institute of Maine, who, lives in Waterboro, who I've sat down with, and a few others. So those are in the early stages of conversation. Brunswick, the Brunswick region, and it might be more regional, is one where we have really such good interest in our adult ed class. And I have some different friends and colleagues in the area that I've been talking to about that region. So those are the two, that we're furthest along on. But coming into the new year, it's also, I'll just say, one of the things I've been really trying to gauge is not getting too far out ahead on starting things until we've raised money to have staff for more than just me. I have an intern right now from the Chaplaincy Institute. But I don't want to get things started that then we can't really follow through on. So actually, I'm not doing any adult ed classes this spring, other than one in Brunswick that we had already booked. And also because Brunswick is one of our target areas. But I made the slightly hard decision to tell these programs that are all excited about it, to say, well, let's do it again in the fall. But I need to really focus on building out the business, the workplace teams, the local committees, and raising money. Yeah. Any other questions? Saco.
Two questions for you. So, how do you plan on fundraising, and do you have any jobs for fundraising?
Are you applying?
Well, I would love to apply.
Okay. How I plan to do fundraising is actually, there's two ways. One is, it's been really encouraging various people who have professional skills who have said, how can I help? And so I have people, and some of them who work in fundraising, who will help me. The other thing is, this is not joking at all, that one of the first fundraising needs that I'm going to work on is raising money to hire a fundraiser. Because it's not something that I'm necessarily that good at. It's not what excites me. And I happen to have a really incredible network, both in Maine and nationally. And some of the work I've done nationally has been funded by some really big funders. And so part of my strategy has been get things accomplished where we can show that, this is more than just, oh, Jeff Edelstein has this idea, wouldn't this be cool? So Jacob, we're not quite there to take applications.
Darn.
But my goal is to be there fairly soon.
Well, I'm good at fundraising, I can tell you that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Stay tuned. And,
Yes.
and I want to make sure to get your contact info.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Please.
all right. Anybody else? I don't want to keep you here too long.
Comment.
Yes,
When you're talking at the neighborhood level of people helping people and so forth. There are apps, there's one in particular that I use, neighborhood app. And you just pick the geographical area where you're in or whatever. And you'll find people introduce themselves, I'm new to the neighborhood, oh, let's everybody welcome this person, and someone will say, gee, I can't do any lifting and I need some help in my backyard. Someone else, oh, sure, I'll come over. And that's happening, using that platform, but it's free and open. There's
Right.
no, structure.
is that next door?
Yeah, I think it was next door.
I'm on next door, and it's great.
So one, just promoting that kind of,
Yeah,
activity and.
I would like to, I already have other states, people in other states that are saying, well, when are you gonna start this in our state? And, I would really like to take this national. And one of the things would be to, reach out to next door and say, how can we work together? And maybe there's a way to even add on some features. Yeah, I find next door to be great. I don't want to say downside, but like I'm in I guess it's the Waterboro one, and I think there's only 100 people, and we are a town of almost 10,000. So I want to see how we can increase that.
Yeah, I think some promotion of things that are already there, but,
Yeah.
partnership would be good.
Yeah,
We'll promote it if we could do some advertising for like fundraising or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I will, actually, I'll also say one other thing. I've been resistant up until, I think, just this morning. I wanted to really have active time about in person. I've been resistant to doing things online. Because I think kindness really, it's so much better when you do it in person.
Right, yeah.
But actually this morning, it just struck me. We live in the world that we live in. And I think we're gonna have to be doing things online, taking advantage of technology like that. And I think that artificial intelligence is something that is both scary and this is where, I feel like sometimes people must think, God, Jeff, you are so audacious or ambitious. Could Maine be the state where we say, how could we use AI for good in order to create more kindness and taking care of each other and caring in this world? And, and it strikes me that if that's part of what we're trying to accomplish, and look, everything takes money to do things. If we can create a good pitch on how Maine is going to be the state that shows that AI is a force for good, there are many billionaires out there that will fund what we're doing if we're going to do that.
I think with AI, we could create more artificial bots and increase federal dollars as our population grows.
Exactly.
And,
I will say, I will push back on it, and I definitely see where you're coming from as far as, going from Zoom to face to face. But when you were showing that slide, one of the things that I connected, I was gonna stay away from politics, but the one thing that I connected was you had a quote about loneliness from the Secretary General, who I absolutely really like. And then it talks about like businesses, and I think that, because of COVID, everybody was working from home. And now it seems like companies want their employees to come back because they're sick of paying the bills of, and having everybody at home. And people are, I think in my world, I don't know other people's worlds, they don't want to be in the office anymore. They want to be home. And it's like, no wonder people are lonely.
Right.
And let's face it, when you Zoom, it's different. When you're not face to face, it is different. It's just different.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I agree.
I
You want to be able to talk to somebody in Madawaska. You're not gonna drive there, I get that, but I just feel like when I was looking at that screen, it was like, to me, they were one and the same. Because there is a lot of lonely people out there, because there's so many people that are working from home, that's all they do, and unfortunately, they're and you do have bonds at work that aren't happening. And that's one of the things that's kind of causing it. And it also relates to, so I'm a school teacher, I'm a middle school teacher. And you also said something that bumped on me, which is, so every month I give my 8th graders a challenge. And the one that I just did this last month was, I asked them to do a 30-day challenge. So I asked them if there was more hours in the day than the 24 that we're given, what are some things you would want to do? And so they made a list. And then I said, all right, now you've done that. Now you're gonna do it for a grade, so you might as well pick something that you would, that you've already written down. But one of the kids talked about appreciation. So her 30-day challenge was to handwrite a letter every day to somebody.
Oh,
And
wow.
that handwriting thing, so then they have to report out on certain checkpoints that I have. And she was saying how with all the technology, again, we're going back to technology, but all the technology we have, we're all Snapchatting each other, we're all text messaging. But the amount of people that were so excited to get an actual handwritten letter. That's what she commented on. There's an 8th grade girl and she was like, and I sent letters to my friends, I sent a letter to my parents, I sent a letter to like former teacher, you know, all these, because she had to do 30 days of it. She really had to, but she was saying how creative it was, and she said, I think the best part of it was when you get a text, anybody can send a text and it's like that. But when you actually put paper to pen, she put it so eloquently, like they know that you actually took the time and effort than
Right.
just sending a text or a chat
Yeah.
or a snap. It was pretty awesome. And so you had mentioned that about the handwritten part. And I think all adults should know that is like handwrite, you know, if you handwrite something, it just means something, you know,
Yeah,
something more. It's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah,
You
it's-
touched on so many things that are dear to my heart. Actually, I'm just gonna say, while you were saying that, at one point, my thought bubble that just went through me was like, God, I love doing this work. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
and what you just said is really hopeful.
Yeah, I'm trying in my classroom and, you know, again, kids coming back from a experience in COVID and trying to like get them reassociated with things that you just, for years, we've taken for granted. And social interactions are one of the main, what are very on the forefront, you know, having reaction, you know, being able to agree and to disagree and do all those things. And for me, it's like I'm trying to instill, especially with my 8th graders, is that life is not a zero-sum game. Our culture has turned into everything as a zero-sum game. You know, it's not about winning on a basketball court, it's about the other team losing.
Yeah,
It's not about, you know, the Republican or Democrat who wants to pass a bill. It's not about that. It's about keeping the Republican or Democrat from writing that same bill. We all can agree to do this, you know, it's just everything is like that. And it's so related to kindness. It's not as you know, helping somebody out, you know, that needs a little helping hand or, you know, whatever. People don't want to do it. Why? Because they're getting something. It doesn't mean you're losing it. It's just helping, you know,
Right.
and it's just like, I'll do activities in class where it's like a competition when you're reviewing something. And I have to stop and remind them, everybody's winning in this because when we're doing this, you're all preparing for the test. It doesn't matter who wins or loses the competition. It's not as zero, like, we're all winning. It doesn't matter, you know, it's just. But it's just like our culture, I feel like is just all about that, no matter what you're doing academically, athletically, it's not about that. It's just about helping each other or just, you know, looking at the big picture. And just because I'm getting something doesn't mean somebody's losing something. And it's just trying to get that out there is.
Yeah, that balance, but one of the things that impresses me about the NFL is at the end of the game, you see all the players, you know, congratulate each other, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so, you know, to be able to emphasize more of that,
absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
oh, these two guys are in different teams, but actually they play
Yeah.
together another time, or there's some kind
Yeah.
of bond between them. Pretty cool. You see some of that in the commercials too, like to the two competitors sitting down and eating chips or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're very competitive on the field.
yeah.
All right, so it's almost 8 o'clock. We will officially adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. for all your help.
And then I accidentally deleted it.
Oh, no.
Uh,
Hey,